Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the State of the Educated Black Man presented by Operation G.R.A.D Incorporated. It's your boy, top-ranked Marvin Frank, singer-songwriter, educated student to the game, homie, lover, friend. And to my right is my good friend, McLovin. How are you, sir?
Man, I'm good, man. I'm good, man. Y'all already know what it is, man. It's your boy, McLovin. Got these chicks hot straight out the oven. Educator, motivator, dark skin, drinking hen, teacher, preacher. Got you dying laughing, calling me the Grim Reaper. Ugh.
Hey, McLovin. So I noticed you have quite a bit of phlegm built up in your throat, man.
Yeah.
Hot toddy, hot tea, honey, and that'll take care of all
I gotta put some Jameson in there, you know. It has to be
well,
Jameson.
This is the State of the Educated Black Man. So I don't know how many educated black men drink Jameson.
Look, man, it's hard being a black man. I'm telling you, it's hard. And it's okay to have a drink, man. It is okay to have 1, 2, 3, 7 drinks. That's it. The max 20.
Okay. Well, without any further ado, again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the State of the Educated Black Man. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the share button. Let all your family and friends know that you're tuned in to a special presentation presented by Operation G.R.A.D Incorporated. Let's go ahead and introduce our panelists for this evening. Our first panelist, Mr. Jared Washington. He's a clinical mental health counselor, speaker, and author.
Next up, we have Timothy Bauer, award-winning author, entrepreneur, and youth motivational speaker. Hometown is Allendale, South Carolina, and he is a graduate of Benedict College.
And third, we have Mr. Ian Saunders. He is a biomedical researcher, health and science enthusiast, a proud graduate of Norfolk State University and Morehouse School of Medicine.
Next up, we have Dominique Moody. He is an NBC Connecticut reporter, is a graduate of North Carolina A&T State University, and hometown is Durham, North Carolina. Do that still say North Cat? NCAT? No? Okay.
They might.
People don't say NCAT up there.
Next, we have Mr. Andrew Alexander. He's a native of Charlotte, North Carolina, a graduate of Johnson C. Smith University, where he studied biology, and UNC Chapel Hill, where he attended medical school. First-year resident at Moses H. Cone Hospital in Greensboro, North Carolina. His specialty is physical medicine and rehabilitation. He will continue training at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, beginning in July 2021.
Next up, we have, last and definitely least, we have Julius Collins, who is a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. He is an avid reader, enjoys helping people and winning. Yo to the noobs, though.
I'm just wondering, anybody that did not pledge Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, what were you thinking? Go back.
No.
What were you thinking? Thank us later. Before we move on to our first question, again, hit that like button, hit the share button, let people know what you're tuned into. State of the Educated Black Man presented by Operation G.R.A.D Incorporated. Operation G.R.A.D Incorporated is a 501c3 nonprofit organization whose mission is to increase the persistence and graduation rates of collegiate Black men through mentoring. And this week is their Founders Week. So happy Founders Week to Operation G.R.A.D Incorporated, celebrating their 1-year anniversary. They have a few, some upcoming events coming up for the remainder of the week. So make sure you tune in on Wednesday, February 3rd, virtual DJ battle scholarship fundraiser. Log into this page, 7 p.m. via Facebook Live. Just search again, Operation G.R.A.D Incorporated on Facebook. On Friday, February 5th is the official Founders Day, where they're having $25 hours of giving. All right, donate $25 to a good cause, symbolic of February 5th, right? 2-5, and a live chat with the co-founders at 6 p.m. via Facebook Live. And last announcement before we get started, we are looking for corporate and university partners. If you know anyone of those or stakeholders in those corporations or universities that would be a good fit for the organization, please contact co-founders Dr. Daryl Hilton and Jamie Inge. All right. And again, thank you so much to the gentlemen of Operation G.R.A.D for providing us this opportunity. Let's go ahead into our first question. Let's start with Mr. Bowers. And then, afterwards, gentlemen, will, of course, we expect everybody to respond. At what age did you realize that as a Black man, the expectation for your life was different?
Yeah, I was thinking about that question, and going through my timeline and my story. And I took it all the way back to Allendale County, man. I grew up in a poverty-stricken rural town in South Carolina, and absent father, mom, the only the sole provider. And man, I was just a troubled kid. And 13 years old, man, made some terrible decisions that led me to the Department of Juvenile Justice. And it was crazy because, at the crib, I wasn't making my bed up, like at all. But, someone standing over me saying, yo, you're not eating breakfast until you make your bed at a 45-degree angle, straight up. Like, and nobody is going to go to breakfast until you make your bed up. And it was during these type of instances when, at the age of 13, going through this, and I was like, yo, like, I don't like the fact that my freedom is in someone else's hand. Like, I want to be in control of my destiny. And it was that mind shift for me at 13 years old that I told myself, when I get out, I'm going to find a job, because we was on government assistance, man. Wow. And I started working and I started grinding, man. But it was because of that decision I made at 13 years old, having my freedom in someone else's hand, that led me to shift my thinking. And I continued that mind state, you know what I mean, throughout high school and throughout college and up until this day, that I want to control my freedom. I want to control my destiny.
Thank you for sharing, Brother Bowers. Mr. Sanders, Ian Sanders. Again, the question, at what age did you realize as a Black man, the expectation for you was different?
I would probably say around high school. That was when I kind of decided that I wanted to do science in some kind of format, either be a physician or do research or something of that pathway. My parents actually were really strict on me growing up, and they always made sure I had like something else going on outside of school. And my mom made me volunteer at this hospital back in Roanoke, Virginia. And I was a transporter, which is just somebody who comes and picks up different patients and takes them to different places, or we come and pick up different materials from the lab and deliver them where they need to be. And I was just talking to one of the older gentlemen who worked there, and he was just stressing the importance of representation, especially in healthcare. And that just kind of like instilled something in me that I never really forgot. And, I noticed once I got to college, it was the first time, like in college, I can truly say at Norfolk State, that was the first time I actually saw a Black scientist, like somebody who really was going down that pathway. And I was just like, okay, this is different, but it can be done. And I think that representation, definitely having that experience as a younger kid in the hospital, having strict parents, just trying to figure out where I fit in. I think that all kind of culminated to that, and kind of made me think, I'm a little bit different, and it's okay to be different. I think that's something that we all embrace, no matter what path of life you go down. None of us are the same. We have similarities, of course, but we all have our own journey, and being able to embrace that is something that definitely, you can take away at the end of the day.
Now, Dominique, talk to me, man. What age did you realize that things just will be different, with your expectations of life as a Black man?
Yeah, I think like Tim and said, I think it kind of starts, in your early childhood, right? You kind of get introduced to how the world works, and, you see the differences, I guess, in my experience, between the disciplinary actions that are sometimes given to those that, look like the people who are on this meeting, and you see the differences and the stark contrast between those that may not look like you. And so I think growing up in an environment where, it was a military family, and at the same time, it was always this idea of, you know, you got to sometimes be a little bit better than your counterparts, you know, or you got to work twice as hard. You know, I think learning that at an early age really kind of gave me the idea that the expectation of a Black man is simple. You have to, you know, kind of be on point at all times. So, you know, I try to carry that with me every day, and even, you know, using that in the field that I'm in now. I think that that was the kind of expectation all my life. You know, you got to be twice as good.
Excellent. Mr. Alexander, how about for you? At what age did you realize that the expectation for you as a Black man was different?
Yeah, I'd say there were several points in my life where I feel like that was confirmed over and over again. But the earliest instance I can think of, I was back in elementary school. I want to say I was in either fourth or fifth grade, and one of my white classmates had made a really racially insensitive joke. Um, and what he said was, "What do you call an N-word with one leg?" And the punchline was SHIT on a stick.
Wow.
And I was a white, predominantly white school. I was one of two Black kids sitting at that table of about 10 kids. And so everybody else was white at the table, and they were howling with laughter, thinking it was hilarious. And me and, you know, the other Black kid at the table were like, bro, like, that's not funny. Like, why would you say something like that? So I think that's when it kind of hit me at first. And, you know, I was so young, I didn't really know how to process it at the time. But at, that was when I realized things were a little bit different, and that I wasn't viewed the same way as some of my other counterparts because I looked a little different.
All right. Thank you for sharing. And Julius Collins.
The great introduction to manhood, right? Mine would definitely have to be possibly third grade, right? We moved to this community, and I, similar to probably everybody on it, Tim grew up in a small town where obviously you have your racial divides by, or your community divides by race, obviously, right? And so I can recall when we first moved to this town, we were in the projects. Well, I had two older brothers, and they did whatever they did to get us out of the projects, right? And so we moved to this area, and I recall it was off Walker Street, had the guest house in the back, the fenced in, like the screen, back porch, front porch, huge kitchen. But the police always came to our house, right? So it was never a situation of how did our counterparts end up in this neighborhood, right? It was always how did you guys end up in this neighborhood? So I think dealing with that, and then, you know, of course, them going to prison, obviously, right? And going to school, and the headlines on the television and the newspapers that had your family members in it. And then I think everybody had the DARE program, right? So the police knew who you were. I didn't win these competitions every time the DARE program instructor came around because I was the smartest. No, that was the deterrent factor to say, hey, we can possibly, you know, not necessarily even save this one, but more so, let's see if we can get information on what's going on in the home, because the police are still knocking on the door, even once my brothers and were going to prison. So I think that at that moment, it was, okay, we always get questioned as to how we live in this neighborhood, but nobody else gets the questions. The police, they don't go to your neighbor's house. They come directly to your house. And the question is that we had every day is, who called the police today? You know, so I think that at that moment in our mom explaining to us, like, well, this is why they're coming. We understand the criminal aspect of everything, but even after that, it was still an ongoing thing. So at that point, we realized you have to be 10 times better than your counterpart. It can't just be 2 times. You got to be 10 times better. You got to be faster. You got to be smarter. You got to read more. You got to do everything to a higher level. And at that moment, like I said, we realized, hey, you have to really buckle down and determine your own destiny and be better than anyone. And education is the way.
Certainly. Julius, thank you for sharing. Mr. Jared Washington, at what age did you realize that the expectation for you as a Black man would be different?
I think, I sat with this question for a little while, and I think my earliest memory had to be probably high school. For me, my mom, single mother, um, pretty much the same story most of us have on this panel, right? Father wasn't around, all that good stuff, but she always preached like, you got to go to college, you got to go to college, you got to go to college. Like, was like the main thing she preached to me, right? If you want to make it in this country, you want to make it in this world, you have to go to college, you have to go get you an education. And unfortunately, she had to drop out of college because she had me. And so, that was the number one thing. And went to a predominantly Black high school. My high school was like 95% Black, right? So it was a lot of different things going on in my high school, right? And it was a lot of different routes. But my mother always told me, just you got to go to college. Went to college. I think that was reinforced for me in college, that the expectation was different for me as a Black man, because I went to a college where it was 4% Black and about 70-something% white. Completely different for me. Literally a culture shock. And I remember having a conversation. I was running track. There's the only reason why I went to the school, but I was running track. And one of my track teammates, white girl, said, yeah, my parents, they just write a check and they pay for me to go to school. And I said, what? And I was like, you don't got financial aid? She was like, nah. She like, you got financial aid? And I was like, I thought everybody got financial aid. Like, that was, what I'm saying? Like, at that point, I knew, like, oh, the expectations for me as a Black man is a little different. You know what I'm saying? Like, my experience is different. So you realize at that moment, like, yeah, I do have to work harder. You know what I'm saying? Just to be even deemed on the same level as, my white counterparts here. You know what I'm saying? And so I think, yeah, like I said, it was definitely taught in high school. That's when I recognized it, but it was reinforced when I got to college.
And we appreciate you all with that first question. I know that as a Black man, sometimes we are brought at an early age that our expectations of living and life is completely different. I know that we all go through some struggles, some encounters with people that definitely will just shift how we look at life. All right.
Can I add something really quickly? What I found really interesting about a lot of the responses, as we're talking about the state of the educated Black man, many of our panelists discussed that they discovered the realization of the difference between us and the rest of society in an educational setting, or in an education setting. So I just thought that was interesting. I wanted to share that.
This is true. I think a lot of times we definitely are in those settings where our white counterparts are definitely viewing us in a different way, which also jumps to my next question. What is the value of being an educated Black man in 2021? What anybody would like to start? As a matter of fact, Andrew.
I think it's more valuable than diamonds, man. To be honest with you, just growing up with all the experiences, and I'm sure everyone has experienced growing up with being treated differently as a Black person.
Have
on our way to try to
Hey, Andrew, we're having some technical difficulties on here, so we can't really hear you. We'll come back to you. Dominique, if you don't mind sharing, what is the value of being an educated Black man in 2021? Let's talk about the value.
Yeah, I think in 2021, it's imperative, right? In all of our respective fields, it's important to have our voices. It's important to have our perspective. It's important to have our experiences brought to the table. I think for so long, it's been a lack of a voice. I'm not saying, those individuals who have been in those positions, but it's just been, not as much as necessary. So I think that it's imperative to have educated Black men, because you have to think about as we move forward, you know, we're going to have a next generation of Black men. So you have to kind of train up a child in the way they should go, you know, that way they're not able to depart from it. So if you have that type of mentality and you have that type of that type of mindset, you can go ahead and teach, you know, the next generation, because I think that's sometimes what it's all about. And I think that as we see, you know, I wouldn't say the tide's changing. I would say the conversation changing, and I would say the attention is changing. I think that even more than maybe ever, you know, if we can say that, it's important to have our unique voices and our different perspectives brought to the table, because all the panelists, we all bring something different to the table. So it's important to hear our perspectives, and it's important to have educated Black men to be out there on the front lines making a difference.
All right, Ian Saunders, what is the value of being an educated Black man in 2021?
Personally, I think of it as a key or kind of like a stepping stone, to be honest. I think one, that education, no matter what stage you take it at, if you're at home, you're just going to community college, you're going to a full-time university away from home or in your hometown, like in one, that experience alone, just trying to decide what you want to do, the time that you have to train and get to know yourself within whatever field or whatever passion that you have. And also seeing other brothers and sisters that look just like you, finding themselves and trying to figure out what they're gonna do. And you know, you may leave that institution and you still have those connections to those people for a lifetime. I still have friends that I could call who do just about anything, you know, just to give me some advice on certain things that I'm not versed in. So I think it's a key to one, opening up that network. And I think a lot of other communities other than the Black community have established that outside of education, more so in their households. And that's something that, you know, we can honestly work forward to as well. But I really see it as a key, and I see it as a time, a protected time that you have to really concentrate on what it is that you want to do. And you understand, you get a feel for what that dedication is. And, you know, speaking as someone who had the opportunity to go to HBCU, it was a time where I really got to find out, you know, who I was as a person. I was growing up in a town where, you know, I was in classes by myself. You know, I didn't really have other Black women and men with me, you know, in certain parts. And I just knew at the time when I was ready to graduate, I wanted a taste of something else. I wanted to see other people who look like me do that. And having that stepping stone to go to a HBCU or whatever college experience you choose, I don't knock anything, but whatever college experience you choose, just seeing other people who look like you do that, I think that ignites a certain flame in you. So I think education is super important. And I say this for no matter what age you choose to do it. My mother went back to school in her 40s. So I got to see that growing up too. And, you know, I think that's something a lot of my friends who are my age who are going back to school see too. Their children are watching them. So just having a generation of people who watch you over time and the new generation get to watch them do the same thing, that's a big flame, in my opinion.
Thank you, Ian. Andrew, we would love for you to add to that. One thing that you and Ian have a lot in common. You have dedicated and committed and disciplined yourself to, you obviously value education through years of studying medicine. So Andrew, what, especially in the medical field, what is the value of an educated Black man, and specifically in medicine, you know, and generally speaking?
Can you guys hear me now? Okay, good. Yeah, I think, I mean, education is worth more than diamonds, especially in this day and age. Ian touched on this a little bit, so I'll piggyback, but just seeing people who look like you in spaces that are historically not represented by us is such a huge inspiration. And particularly in medicine, only 2% of practicing physicians in the United States are Black men. Think about that, 2%. That's abysmal, right? So, I mean, there's no way I would have been here without the men who you know came before me, and the men and women who came before me. There's this post that was circling around on social media. It was a Black applicant in the, I want to say the 40s to Emory School of Medicine, and it was a picture of a letter, a rejection letter, saying that, you know, we're sorry to inform you that you're not accepted here because you are of the Negro race. Here's your $5 application fee back. And so, you know, that wasn't terribly long ago, you know? So I feel like having that education gives you that stepping stone to be present in those spaces where we're desperately needed. And now that gives the people coming after us a path to follow.
Certainly. Thank you for sharing.
All right, Julius, talk to me. What is the value of being an educated Black man in 2021? I know that we spoke earlier, and you know, you actually practice law. Talk to us about that.
I think as an attorney and even as an African American male, it's like Andrew said, it's essentially it's priceless, right? Because even as African American males and as whatever field you're in, you have to have more than just the education in the books, right? We all come from different backgrounds, but no matter what, you still have to be in tune with what's going on. So we also have to have the education in the streets, right? In the culture. So you can relate to those younger guys and pull them up. So it's like Andrew said, it's priceless to the point where we have to be so well rounded that it's insane. You know, nothing against our counterparts, but nobody else, in my opinion, has to know both sides. Nobody else has to be educated in the streets or know the street code or know this, and also have the book knowledge to go along with it. So I think when you put those two together, as an educated African American male, a Black man in all facets, but you even get a trade, you still have to have that education. So I think, like Andrew said, man, it's absolutely priceless. When I get a client, you know, you guys see me on a call before. I'm not putting on a shirt and tie when I know this individual that I'm meeting is the person that I used to be. So in order for me to be able to relate to him, I might show up in some Jordans or pullover. Like, what you doing, man? What's going on? You know, so it's not that much of a age difference between us to where we can understand it. So we have to have that street education as well to go along with the book sense, right? So, like Andrew said, man, it's absolutely priceless. Priceless. It's mandatory.
Indeed. Thank you for adding. Mr. Bowers, as a youth motivational speaker, when you speak to young Black men specifically, what do you express as being the value of being an educated Black man in today's society?
Yeah, man. So first thing I tell them is you were not born to be average. You were born to leave a legacy worth remembering. That's the first thing. You know what I mean? That you have power within you already that you might not even know that you have, but it's in you. Like it's in you. And I express to them that this is how I know it's in you because there are others before you that have done the impossible. You know what I mean? And you know, then I start throwing out names, you know, and to them to let them know like, yo, you got to get exposed to this. I know what you've seen, right? You go outside of your yard, you may see, you know, you know, go play basketball, football, you know, cats getting in trouble, et cetera, et cetera. Let me expose you to something different. So number one, I go in to expose them to new information. I go in to instill a level of empowerment within them to let them know how they can navigate the pathway to get to their goals and dreams. And then I share my story, you know what I mean? And just the power of right now, guys, just to go back, you know what I mean, to the last question of the importance of communication and public speaking, you know what I mean? Man, let's just think about some of the great prominent African-American men that have used their voice that have changed the world. You know what I mean? Like it's been revolutionized. Like we literally, the uttering words that have come out of our mouth have changed the dynamics of the world. So I want our youth to understand the power of communication at the end of the day and how it can really, really not only when you presenting yourself, be able to articulate your thoughts. Because a lot of times when we're dealing with high needs students or youth, or they know what they want to say, they just don't know how to articulate what they're trying to say. So we can get them to articulate their thoughts. Imagine the creative genius that can come out of a kid, you know what I mean, at 11, 12, 13 years old, you know what I mean? So I just go in to try to get them to think. You know, I'll leave off this. Dr. Miles Monroe talked about, and I'm paraphrasing, how the job of a teacher is not to give the answer. It is simply to stimulate the mind of the student. Wow. You see what I'm saying? Like, as educated Black men, you know, I hear on this call how we have to work so much harder than our counterparts. And that joint is unfortunate, right? But it is what it is at the end of the day, right? But if we can stress to our young people coming behind them, to get them to understand their power, for number one, but stimulate their mind to think so they can create their own thoughts and expression, because they have so much in here that they can, you know, present to the world, which can change the world forever, man. So that's how I go in from a mind state of being a professional speaker and speaking to our next generation.
Profound.
Absolutely. Before I go into the next person, damn, Bauer, I feel motivated now. Hey, I'm gonna go save the world right now. He done just motivated me already. Last, Jared, talk to us. I know you're into the clinical mental health. Tell us, what is the value of being an educated Black man, even in the mental health field?
You know, everybody went before me, and I feel like I'm gonna just piggyback off of everybody else, right? But you know, Julius and Andrew said it priceless. I mean, being is like literally being a unicorn. Like, I literally get called a unicorn in my field. You know what I'm saying? People are like, I've never seen a Black male therapist before, ever. You know what I'm saying? And so when you're talking about what is the value of being a Black educated man in my field, it's priceless, because I'm able to show youth that, you know, if this is the route that you want to go, you can do it. It's possible. You know what I'm saying? And like Julius said, like, I show up in sessions straight up with t-shirts on sometimes, and you know what I'm saying, just straight graphic tees, you know, sweaters. Like, you know, I'm not like, I'm talking about like an alpha sweater or a regular just sweater. Like, and we kicking it. We in sessions, we having a good time. We processing and we doing some healing work, but we also building that rapport, and we're connecting, we're building. You know what I'm saying? Because I understand that struggle. I understand, you know, that those experiences. We are the only people that have to know the streets and know the professional realm as well. We are the only ones that have to know that. And it's crazy, when Julius said it, I was like, damn, you're right. Like, that's crazy. You know, we are the only ones that got to know that. And so, you know, so when I think about that question, man, you guys summed it up perfectly. It's priceless. And, you know, we're able to reach back to the youth and say, you can do this. You can do this as well. Our ancestors paved the way for us, and we're continuing to pave the way for the ones that's going to come after us.
Absolutely. Thank you. I ain't trying to cut you off, Jared. Were you finished? I didn't.
Yeah, I wasn't, but it's cool. I'm good now. I've
oh, man, come on, man. No, it was going in and out. I thought you stopped for a second.
Yeah, it's cool.
Thank y'all so much. Once again, Operation G.R.A.D. Incorporated is a 501c3 nonprofit organization whose mission is to increase the persistence and graduation rate of all collegiate Black males through mentoring. Once again, this week is their Founders Week, celebrating their 1-year anniversary. Some of the upcoming events that are happening is this Wednesday, February 3rd, we're having a virtual DJ battle scholarship fundraiser at 7 p.m. Facebook Live on this Facebook account. February the 5th, we have Founders Day on the 25th. Founders Day, where people are donating to $25 an hour $25 an hour of giving and donating $25. Please make sure you donate. February 5th, 2/5, that's where the 25 come from, for those who wonder. And a live chat with the co-founders at 6 p.m. via Facebook Live. We are looking for corporate and university partnerships. If anyone knows of any corporations or universities that would be a good fit for the organization, contact co-founder Dr. Durham Halton and Jamie Ng. So now we're going to jump into our third.
Hold on 1 second. Our last question, we talked about the value of being an educated Black man, and a common thing we heard was it being priceless.
Mm-hmm.
I want to add something that is also priceless. Hitting the like button, commenting, sharing this platform.
I like that plug.
We often hear so much in our community, Black men are this, Black men are that. Now, I don't often feel like we're the ones perpetuating this. I believe media plays a role in it. There are a lot of different factors, but this is, you don't see this panel every day. There's so much that's happening in our community where Black men are not as celebrated as we should be, especially educated Black men. So we're discussing the state of the educated Black man presented by, presented by Operation G.R.A.D. Incorporated. So yes, hit the like button, hit the share button, comment. Thank you to everybody that's joining me.
First of all, what you ain't finna do is cut me off like that. Like, you ain't give me no tap on the shoulder. We practiced this. We practiced this, man.
I gave you the bump. I did not.
Man, see, now I feel like I got to ad-lib now too because you're doing all this.
No, we can go to the next question.
See, this is what I'm talking about. This is why, no, next time y'all just gonna get me, okay? All right, next question. Considering the major events that's happened in 2020, how has that impacted you as an educated Black man in your respective profession, if any, if at all? We're going to start off with Jared. I'll make sure that you go first, although the nukes were first. But we're going to make sure that you go first for this time.
Now, we know that's not true.
Yeah, we know the real girls, the alphas are the ones.
Go get this book.
Brother Washington, it all started with
You know what I'm saying? It's Black History Month. It's Black History Month. Let's not start because we can go there.
But so how it impacted me with all the events going on? It definitely impacted me in a way, right? And impacted me in a way. Well, first, let me say I specialize in racial trauma. I specialize in racial trauma and intergenerational trauma. That's actually what my book is about. My book is about intergenerational trauma, which talks about how trauma is passed down through different generations within a family and a community, not only through learned behaviors and storytelling, but also in our epigenetics, right? Which is documented, whatever, my medicine guys could probably even vouch for me a little bit, right? but yeah, so I specialize in that. So when you're talking about the things that happened in 2020, I saw an increase of people of color, Black people coming, trying to get services, trying to process what's going on in this country, trying to process like, hey, like, when is it going to stop? When, like, we're so many amount of years out of slavery, we're so many amount of years out of the civil rights, and we're still going through the same stuff.
Thank you, Brother Washington, for shit. I think he froze. We'll go ahead and move forward, Brother Washington. We'll let you come back and finish once we get the audio fixed. Mr. Moody, as a reporter, you had to probably discuss these events day in and day out, from the killing of George Floyd to the pandemic. Just so much has happened in 2020, as Brother Washington was sharing, where many have just experienced trauma. I know he was talking about racial trauma, but I'm sure, that applies to so many of us. So as a reporter, how have these major events kind of shaped the way that you've had to cover this in media and things of that nature?
I think for me, it's been important to kind of shed light on these things that, for us, we knew had always been the case, right? We think about the medical field, right? We think about the disparities when it comes to health. We think about the lack of resources, the lack of education that is not simply there for us. And so for me, you know, when reporting about the pandemic, I mean, it was just right there. But again, it was just making sure that we're raising these questions and making sure that we're holding those who are in these powerful positions accountable to say, hey, look, you know, what are you doing to actively help, you know, our community, but also those other communities that simply don't have access to those resources. And as far as like the different type of, you know, incidents that happened with George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, you know, Rashard. I mean, I can keep going and keep going, but you know, I think for me, as a reporter, sometimes it's hard, right? Because you have to remain objective. You have to make sure that you give people the facts. There's little room for any type of editorial comments. So, I mean, I think if anything, it allowed us to maybe inform some of our coworkers and our colleagues about some of the things that they simply didn't know about that we always knew about. So it's always about getting everyone's perspective, getting everyone's voice heard. And sometimes it's important to go into those communities, go into those environments where our voices simply don't get heard a lot. You know, so some of those protests that was happening, you know, it felt good to be there with them, you know, as far as like hearing what they have to say. But I think at the end of the day, it was kind of hard to report about it and then, you know about it and then remain objective. So for the most part, I think it's kind of brought to the forefront the importance of having people behind the scenes making and calling the shots, because a lot of times in my field, you know, it's just not a lot of us behind the scenes, and that's really where the power lies. You know, people can get in front of the camera, I get in front of the camera, but you know, I'm more or less kind of getting told, you know, getting shot down what I can and what I can't report. You know, so it's important to have people who look like us to be behind the scenes calling the shots, because that's where the power lies. And I'm so grateful to have mentors who work behind the scenes, and even at my station, where they are actively making sure that our voices are being heard.
Thank you for sharing.
Julius, talk to me. Just considering you being an attorney, how did the impacts of 2020 affect you as an educated Black man, and just everything that was just going on?
I think we already knew that the justice system, well, with the events last year, now everything is more publicized, right? The power of the camera, the power of the media, and now the new chant for whomever, we don't have to call them out, the argument that the justice system is broken, right? Well, it's not broken. That's the thing. It's operating exactly how it was designed to operate. The first time you really started hearing people or counterparts say, oh, the justice system is broken, is when O.J. Simpson got found not guilty. Let's be honest. After that, that's when everything came falling down. Oh no, Rome is falling, justice system is broken, justice wasn't served. But with the events of 2020 and hearing that chant and having to deal with prosecutors, even if you bring in coronavirus or COVID-19, it's harder to get on a court calendar now, right? So now you have people who are African Americans who the system already disproportionately affected. They're having to sit in jail longer, right? And most times you can only get a client out now, depends on who you're dealing with, what prosecutor you're dealing with, is if they take a plea. So it's almost like, hey, this is the only way you're going to get to go home if you go ahead and get forced into a plea, and you can get probation or you may have to pay a fine, when you know in your heart of all hearts that they either can't prove their case, they don't have the evidence, or this person truly isn't guilty at all. But it places you in a position to where you have to have that in-depth conversation with the clients even more so than you used to, because it's, hey man, if you get locked up, you're gonna struggle to get a bond. And you have a right to XYZ. Some of those rights are not going to be protected, right? You have a right to confront witnesses against you. It's only so much you can do virtually, right? So now you add in, as a defense attorney, we go in and we have to make an argument on behalf of a client who's more than likely African American, male or female. You also have to remain neutral, right? You go in and you make your argument, but you know in the back of your mind that the argument that you truly want to make, which some people would probably say, oh, that's too much along the lines of race baiting or arguing the racial component of it. I still argue it, I don't care, me personally. But a lot of judges, they don't like that. A lot of prosecutors, they're appalled at that argument when it's all facts, right? But even you guys saw it going on in Atlanta. Like, it's gotten to the point where Black lives are used now for politics.
Yeah, facts.
You know what I mean? Like, it's I can get into details on some of the killings just here alone in Atlanta, but I'm not. But if you guys seen it, that wasn't because people felt a certain way. Unfortunately, those individuals, in my honest opinion, used as political pawns. Those situations were used as political pawns. And with everything going on in the tragic events of 2020, from the numerous killings of unarmed African Americans, males and females and everything, that paved the way for situations like that to happen, honestly. Because now some of those politicians feel like, well, we got to go and grab the Black vote back. How can we do that? Oh, we pull on the emotional strings and play the race card, right? And we go and do this because this happened to the African American male. So I think 2020 was just a crazy year, man. I think, going into the courtroom, it made everything 10 times harder in my profession.
Thank you for sharing, Julius. And Saunders, you're a biomedical researcher. We're still in a pandemic. 2020, we had our goals for 2020. And for some, many of those plans or those goals were had to come to a halt due to the pandemic. So as a biomedical researcher, we hear a lot about this vaccination. In 2020, it was discussed and it was being developed. There was talk of the implementation of it. Now we're living in a time where many people are getting the vaccine. So how has the event, specifically the implementation of vaccination, how has that impacted your day-to-day?
That's a good question. Personally, with Corona going on, like, I just graduated. I just got my Ph.D. In May of 2020.
Right.
So graduated virtually. So that was crazy. I'm a cancer biologist by training, and I'm learning immunology now, working with Johnson & Johnson, and just having this experience, seeing what it's like on the pharmaceutical side is different. But overall, I would say how it impacted me the most would be seeing other people who have PhDs, masters, anybody versed in healthcare, MDs as well. I'm sure Andrew's had to answer questions from family members, friends, everybody. Like, it's just disseminating that information properly to our community. Of course, we have a history of mistrust with the government, with these different research companies coming into our community, abusing us. I mean, we got Henrietta Lacks, we got the Tuskegee experiments, things of that nature. So I know even with my own family, there's a mistrust from generation to generation in Black communities about even taking simple things with medication, or just trusting things that are being put out from the government. So I would say, I think the most impactful thing that I saw from a lot of my friends, and including myself and other people in this field as well, is just being avenues to tell people real information. I remember at one point, there was so much information being put out from everybody. Everybody had a doctorate degree at one point during quarantine and was telling everybody what you should do. I mean, even our president was telling people, joking around, talking about drinking Clorox, things of that nature. Like, people need real people that they know in their communities that they can go to and ask questions. And I honestly was astonished to see how many of us were stepping up to tell our own people, and who are continuing to step up and tell our own people, hey, I'm taking the vaccination, or here's the real information. I know a lot of MD friends of mine who work now as residents or who are in school currently, they're, taking to social media to say, hey, this is my journey after taking the vaccination. This is my symptoms, everything is safe. And I think even that, just on a basic level, just gives our people something to have that's not coming from someone else that we have a history of mistrust for. So I think just being a central party to be able to do that, that's been a glorious thing to see. But other than that, like I said, it's just also highlighting the importance of these frontline workers, especially in healthcare and other different fields as well. But seeing these young men and women who are going into work and who are trying to save lives, nurses, doctors, physician's assistants, anything, even people like me who are going into a research facility and just trying to develop something to help people, like I said, it just showed that how important you are. Even if you don't think you're important, people are watching you, and people, and you can give a wealth of information to people, especially our people, because we don't have a lot of avenues for where we can get our information from people who look like us and who we can trust.
And thank you once again for that. Andrew, I know that your specialty is in physical medicine and rehabilitation. So how has this whole pandemonia affected you?
Oh man, it's been tough. It's been really tough. So for my first year of training, I actually have to do internal medicine strictly before I go into the physical medicine and rehab part to kind of just build that foundation. That's just how the training goes. So, I've seen the damage that the pandemic is causing in a clinical setting, and it's tough to watch. It was crazy just hearing about it on the news. Not sure if things were going to change here at in the United States, or if it was going to reach us, and then it started happening. And then I also graduated in the midst of the beginnings of the pandemic in May, so I was kind of thrusted into the workforce in the middle of it, and it was a tough adjustment, especially seeing the numbers come back, and that the statistics suggest that people of color are being more affected than their white counterparts, and there's so many reasons for that to be the case, but I think that this kind of goes back to what I was talking about before, in just being the importance of being an educated Black man in a place where I could be treating people who look like me, and just know that there's somebody that looks like them, thinks like them, talks like them, is there with them, fighting with them, is so important. You guys mentioned the vaccine. I was blessed to have the opportunity to take it, and I've taken both doses. And I did the same thing, Ian. I posted on my Instagram my experiences because I wanted to build transparency and trust, because there is that historical experience with African Americans in the healthcare system that is just there's a good reason for the mistrust there, right? So it's that much more important for me to be out there leading and and asking people to do things that that I think are going to be beneficial to them. And I'm always trying to do things that I'm doing things for myself that I'm asking other people to do, right? I'll never ask somebody to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. And I hope that builds some trust in our community.
In the words of the late great Barry White, practice what you preach. Brother Alexander, we appreciate you just taking that step, and that's really comforting to hear physicians say, hey, I've taken it. I'm encouraging my patients and those who like to take it as well. Brother Bowers, we would love for you to add, but I wanna go ahead and move to the next question, and your response may be similar. As an award-winning author, entrepreneur, youth motivational speaker, if you could speak to all three of those, so what do you feel now is your role as an author, as an entrepreneur, as a youth motivational speaker, to help eradicate these issues that have affected us in 2020?
Yeah, so I think it was in, oh man, I'm gonna mess the month up. Maybe May, June. We had a Million Man March here, and in Columbia, South Carolina, where we marched to the state capitol. And it was pretty much all the guys. Women were still involved. They could be involved, but it predominantly was, men dressed in suits, right?
I remember seeing that.
Right, and just participating in that gave me all kind of feelings, man. It made me think about just the times of me seeing pictures and collages of our ancestors and just seeing, what they've done and the walking and the marching and things of that nature. And just participating in that gave me a sense of power, that I was part of, the awareness piece, of what's going on. So, I think that as educated Black men, we got to get involved, but you got to know your role, right? You got to know where you want to get involved. So, and what will help is you controlling your emotions, though, because we are emotional beings, because we've been faced with so many traumatic, things in our lives. So we got to be able to have control of our emotions so we can know what role we need to go in. You know what I mean? Like Julius, from an attorney standpoint, can give an advice that, and Mr. Saunders, can't give. They know each other's roles. So as Black men, number one, we got to bring awareness, but we got to know our roles as well. And that brings about a level of inspiration, a part of that. Secondly, we have to empower. And what that means is we got to strategize and plan. You know what I mean? Like, we can't just go out on a limb and do things. So, I just was listening to today, Dr. Martin Luther King, he, a lot of times they talk about how he marched and, it was nonviolent, but there was a video where he said, I'm tired of marching. I want to go get that check. You know what I mean? So we got to be able to have the same mentality of whatever it is, whatever road it is that you want to go into to bring the kind of awareness to the issues and the problem and the conversation. We got to also have an empowerment piece. Okay. So that means strategize and plan. And lastly, you just got to have that execution, how to mobilize what it is that you're trying to implement, and I think as educated Black men, if we can all do that from where we are, then we can win where we are. I'm gonna say that again. If we can do that where we are, we can win where we are. And it's not just about getting on TV and saying something or doing something from a grand scale. We gotta focus on community. Whatever community that we in, we work from the inside and spread, right? We can't just be focusing on the big picture. Okay, so I have this concept in my book, chapter 6, focus on the work, not the dream, right? And a lot of times we get so engulfed into the dream of things of what needs to happen, but we need to dive down into where we are, focus on that, and whatever that is, allow that to change the trajectory of where you are and allow that to expand. We're winning if we can do that.
You giving me Carmichael Stokely vibes. I mean, Stokely Carmichael vibes. We must know the difference between mobilization and organization. I love it.
You know what? You go make a reference to every song.
That wasn't a song.
I mean, I just
okay. I heard it initially from Rick Ross had an album, Teflon Don, and he quote. But no, that's what it reminded me of.
That's fine.
Come on, man. We have to connect.
You're right. We gotta. You're right. Absolutely. Brother Timothy, you definitely motivated me. Once again, there you go. Hell, I want to go out and hold hands and march down the street. Wear suits. So, Dominique. I
can't believe you just did that, man. This dude. Okay, go ahead, bro. My apologies.
So Dominique, as a reporter, and knowing that your role is to, in so many words, get juicy gossip, or just, bro, there you go, just get like the news and just get things that catch the attention of the viewers. What do you feel like your role and responsibility is to help, the community?
Well, I think it's all about, building those contacts, maintaining those relationships. You know what I'm saying? I think, one of the things that we have to do is we can't necessarily just check in when we need some, right? That seems like that sometimes is an issue, at least within my field. You have to kind of continue to maintain those relationships. And I think that, you have to be somewhat of a voice that people can go to trust. And I think that's how the relationship is able to build. I think, a comment that was made earlier was, people need to have a voice or someone that they can that are going to give them the facts. And so, I think that's the best way. And I think, sometimes, if you see anyone who is, in a position like me, you want to be able to feel comfortable, sharing some details. And I think it's all about that trust. And I think that you have to be somewhat of a beacon, in your community, willing to hear people and hear them out all the way. You can't just use them and then just throw them away. I don't think that's the way that you can kind of eradicate, some of the issues that are facing our community.
Thank you for sharing, Brother Moody. Brother Attorney Collins, as an attorney, you mentioned earlier just the criticism that often the justice system receives. So what, as especially an educated Black man, as a Black attorney, what is your role in the courtroom to eradicate the issues that we see with over criminalization and more?
Just the short of it is, they say to protect your client's rights, right?
Right.
You see the scales of justice and the lady justice. They say justice is blind, which is sort of kind of true. But my role, I would like to think, and I try to imagine, is to go in there and truly balance those scales to where it tips in my client's favor, because immediately it's already a frightening situation. Your employment is at issue, your livelihood is at issue, your schooling is at issue, because some laws in Georgia, we had to get financial aid. You can't get financial aid with some criminal offenses in Georgia, right? So I try to go in, and how I present it is, what do I need to present to this court to put my client in the best position of getting in the best outcome, to where this won't be a stain on their criminal history, or it may not even be on their criminal history. So I go in with a tactic of, now this is just court appearance. This is not trial, and totally different monster in trial. So if I'm in front of a judge, I present the family structure, right? I go into the community, I reach out to people in front of the community to show this person's community ties and how they're involved in church or what they're involved in, to paint this person in the best light as possible. Not saying it's a fabricated light, but a light that the justice system normally doesn't. I can't cuss, can I? They normally don't give a damn about, right? All they see is a defendant, and they see what they're charged with, but they don't see the individual. So my job is to really go back and rip away that persona of the defendant, and try to get the judge to where they be personable with my client, to where they call him Mr. Williams or Mr. Thomas. I see you have XYZ going in your favor, and it's no longer defendant. I believe once you get the judge to address them by name and no longer defendant, you've done your job, aside from getting the case dismissed at the best possible outcome. But like I said, I go in, and you all seen Scandal, like they say, the gladiators in the suit. It's true, because you have to go in and you really have to fight the entire system. You have to fight the prosecutor, some judges, and you have to fight that underlying racial component that nobody but you and your client would be willing to admit is present. So it's always an uphill battle, though.
Thank you for sharing.
All right, Jared, talk to me. You in mental health. What will be your role, your responsibility, talking to people who struggle with mental health? What do you feel like you need to do in order to eradicate those issues?
Well,
as I look at it, and I shouldn't have no more connection issues. I had to switch computers, but anyway, or
No
laptop.
problem.
But anyway, as I look at it, I really don't look at it as my role or responsibility, man. I think it's a little bit deeper than that. I really feel like it's my purpose. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
I feel like I literally feel like I was created, right, by my higher power to do exactly what I'm doing at this very moment. You know what I'm saying? As far as mental health, and tackling that in the Black community, and specifically Black men. You know, of course, only treat Black men. I treat Black women. I treat everybody. But you know, I feel like again, my purpose was to eradicate the stigma. Also, you know, early in the last question, I don't know if you are, but you know, my book is about intergenerational trauma passed down through different generations in a community and a family. I believe specifically for Black people, we are still experiencing trauma responses that stem from chattel slavery in this country. And we've never were given, or not even, I hate using that word given. We never had a space to heal after slavery ended, right? Now let's put that into perspective a little bit. Trigger warning. Someone experienced a traumatic event as physical abuse or sexual abuse one time in their life, right? One time in their life. We don't tell them to get over it. We give them therapy, right? So that they can eventually move past that, move forward. And even with that, that takes a long time, potentially. Now you're talking about with Black people, and I'm gonna make this connection and I'm gonna wrap it up. But we're talking about with Black people, you're talking about 400, 300 years of day in and day out trauma every day, no space to heal. But in actuality, slavery ended and we experienced more trauma, right? Which would be called race-based traumatic stress or racial traumatic events, like your George Floyd's, mass incarceration, redlining, mass lynching, all that stuff, right? We experienced that. So I feel like, again, my role is to assist the Black community in its healing process, in its healing journey. That's what I was put here for. That's my purpose. So it's bigger than a role and a responsibility for me. That's what I was created to do. So that's why I'm here. And that's what I do on a day-to-day basis. Assist with that. And so, yeah.
Indeed, well said. Let's add on to it. Our brother Alexander, Jared kind of opened for about, you know, what Black people are experiencing. It's no secret that COVID-19 has had a great impact on people of color, specifically Black people. So as a physician, right, what is your role? How, and even if you want to offer advice for our listeners, for us to know in terms of our health, how can we eradicate these health issues that we experience specifically, especially with our bodies?
Yeah, I first want to say to Jared, that was a phenomenal response.
Hey, brother Alexander, it's kind of hard to hear you.
Can you hear me now? Is that better?
We can hear you just really low.
Okay,
The
I'll try
volume. Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah.
Okay. That was a fantastic response, Jared. Thank you for sharing that. You blessed me tonight. But for me as a physician, I think, especially in the context of COVID and in the age of misinformation, that it makes my job harder when there's a lot of bad information floating around that people believe, because and it kind of throws gasoline on the flames of mistrust, particularly in the Black community, with their medical professionals. So it kind of goes back to what I was saying before, kind of stepping out and doing the things, practicing what I preach, so people can look at me and see that, you know, I'm not just blowing smoke. I'm actually about what I'm saying. And two is also giving people good information, accurate information, so that when it's time for them to make a decision, they can make an informed one on their health, right? And the only way I can do that is to be good at what I do, right? I have to read, and I have to be prepared, so that when that information, when I receive information, I can process it, and does the science make sense? Do I think this is going to help people? And then disseminate that to everyone so that they can make an informed decision. So I think there are a number of things that have to happen here. But it starts with me being good at what I do and being well informed, so that I can pass good information on to my patients.
Indeed. Thank you for sharing. Ian, I know you didn't, I don't think you got a chance to share. If it's okay, we'll come to you first for the next question, because we are a bit over time here, and we really want to make sure we get to this last question. If you're tuning in, again, welcome to Operation G.R.A.D. Incorporated presents the State of the Educated Black Man. Operation G.R.A.D. Incorporated, Operation G.R.A.D. Incorporated, it's an acronym, y'all, of course, is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The mission here is to increase the persistence and graduation rates of collegiate Black males through mentoring. Happy Founders Week, Operation G.R.A.D, celebrating 1 year. All right, give a round of applause wherever you are. Show some love. They have a few upcoming events coming up for the rest of the week. So tomorrow, Wednesday, February 3rd, join us. There'll be a virtual DJ battle scholarship fundraiser. You get to party and raise money for a good cause. 7 p.m. Facebook Live. Just join us here at Operation G.R.A.D. Incorporated Facebook. In addition, on Friday, February 5th, which is the official Founders Day for Operation G.R.A.D, there'll be a $25 hours of giving. Donate $25. All right, that's 25 on 25, and have a live chat with the great co-founders of this great organization at 6 p.m. And this event will also take place on Facebook Live. If you know of any corporate, university, folks interested in partnering, we are definitely interested in connecting. If you think a corporation or university would be a good fit for the organization, please contact co-founders Dr. Harold Hilton and Jamie Ng. And Brother Jamie, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. If I'm not, please feel free to correct me. Yes, sir. Did you want?
It's Ng.
Ng. Okay. Jamie Ng. There we go. So let's go ahead to our last question. Speaking of the mission of Operation G.R.A.D. Earlier, which we said is to the goal here is to increase graduation rates of collegiate Black men. And Ian, we'll start with you, since I don't believe you got to share for the last one. But considering the mission of Operation G.R.A.D. Incorporated, again, right, to increase to increase the persistence and graduation rate of collegiate Black men, what advice would you give to the next generation of Black men? What advice?
I would tell them that get uncomfortable being uncomfortable. It won't last forever, but get uncomfortable being uncomfortable. It's nothing that we as Black men aren't accustomed to. Leaving your house, you have to look a certain way so your community doesn't look at you a certain way. So just use that same mindset. Get uncomfortable being uncomfortable. And I think the second thing that I would tell them is that there's no limit to what you want to do. Literally, there's no limit whatsoever. There will be money along the way to help fund your journey. There will be people who you never met. Your name will be in rooms that you never even entered before. There will be help. And as a Christian young man, I think the strongest thing I would say is get close to God. Whether you do education or not, whether you're pursuing higher education after you leave college, whether you're doing a terminal degree, whatever discipline that you want to do, get comfortable with knowing God, because he will teach you about yourself along the way, and nothing is impossible without him. I hope I kept that short enough, but that's what I would definitely tell him.
Thank you, Ian.
All right, and Dominique, same question to you, considering the mission of Operation G.R.A.D. What would you tell, or what advice would you give the next generation of Black educated men?
I would say, don't be afraid to run your own race. You know, I think a lot of times comparison can be the thief of joy. You know what I'm saying? And I think that if you're thinking about what someone else is doing, you know, you're not even thinking about what you need to be doing in order to get to where you need to, or where you want to get at. So I would say, you know, keep that in mind. You know, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. You know, just run your own race. You know, I think that's imperative. And I would say that, you know, what in my experience, what it has been is, you know, your network is your network. You know what I'm saying? So if you're able to build those mentors, build those relationships, and establish those relationships with people in your field, you know, that can take you as far as it can. So, you know, I would say those will be my two things. And just work hard, man. Work hard.
Thank you, Brother Washington. What advice do you have for young Black men?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it short. I would just say, you know, believe in yourself no matter what the world tells you. The world is going to give you a lot of different messages. The world is going to tell you that you're not worthy, that you're not adequate. The world is going to tell you a lot of different things, but believe in yourself first. No matter what messages this country or this world sends you, believe in yourself. You are worthy, you are great, and you are powerful, and you are resilient. We are resilient. We are resilient people. History shows that. So again, believe in yourself and understand that.
Absolutely, absolutely. You is smart. You is special. Am I saying that right? You is important. All right. Those are my little 3 words, and everybody jumping in, giving inspiration. I'm pretty sure I took Julius's speech. But Julius, talk to me, man. What advice would you give the upcoming next generation of Black men?
Man, it's not a speech. You knew I was long-winded when you put a lawyer on here. That's what we get paid to do. But no, don't be afraid to fail. I think that's the biggest thing, that we're so concerned about other people laughing and thinking about, oh, well, you failed at this. So what? You know, as long as you continuously try, people are going to judge you no matter what. And to go off what Dominique said, and to build upon it, determine what success looks like to you. Do not let society or anyone else determine what success is for you. So that would be my short and sweet.
Thank you. Brother, let's see. Oh, Brother Alexander. What advice do you have for the upcoming generation of Black men?
Yeah, I mean, all these brothers have great points. Only thing I'll add is don't give up. Don't give up. Keep pushing forward. If you give up, you're guaranteed not to make it to what you want to get to, right? So if you don't give up and you keep on trying, it's gonna come. All right. And like Dominique said, everyone's journey is different. Doesn't make anyone better or worse. They're all different, and they're all personal journeys. And there's beauty in the struggle, because your story will be inspiration to the ones coming behind you. So don't give up.
All right, thank you so much, Brother Alexander. Next up, we have, you know, I'm ready for this one. You know, this is I'm ready.
We set it up.
We set it up. We gave you the alley-oop. I'm talking about LeBron James, Dwayne Wade type of alley-oop. Bring it into us, Brother Bowers. What advice would you give the upcoming generation of Black men? I'm ready.
So all the panelists said phenomenal things, right? Like phenomenal things for our next generation. I got 4 things, right? The first thing is you can't control the cards that were dealt to you, but you can control how you play your hand. All right, I want to say it again, because you got to get this. Like, you got to get this part. You can't control the cards that were dealt to you, but you can control how you play your hand. I know you went through trauma. I know you don't like the situations you're going through. I know you don't like the fact that your father in your life. I know you don't like the fact that what's going on in the world. But listen, there are things that are out of your control, but what you can't control, is how you play your hand. And I'm just saying, you got to win. Like for most people, if you're like me, growing up the way that I grew up, going through certain situations, when you walk out the door, you automatically know I got to win. Like there's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. I got to win. Secondly, failure can't beat persistence. I tell people all the time, yo, I'm not the smartest person in the room, never. Like usually I'm the youngest person. But what has been key for my success is persistence. Like I get to you like this. You go to a door, you keep knocking, no one comes, you keep knocking, no one comes, you keep knocking. Eventually, someone is gonna come to the door. Now, your mom may be pissed with you because you knocked that many times, but the principle is you didn't stop, you didn't give up, right? So failure can't beat persistence. Number 3, network like your life depend on it. Network like your life depend on it. I think Dominique talked about it, right? A lot of times we get so caught up in our GPA, we get so caught up in our grades, you know, the title, leadership we got on campus, and that's all good because that builds the resume. But let me tell you something. Doors are open because of who you know. Many times there's who you know. So network like your life depend on it. Fourthly, guys, and no one really told me this, or maybe I didn't pay attention to it. Get an understanding of money. Please get an understanding of money. Financial literacy, if you get it in the early stages, will set you up and push you further than your counterparts, or even, you know, the people that, you know, you're hanging with. So I'm just telling you, like, get an understanding of money, guys. So my 4 things that I just want the next generation to walk away with.
Brother Timothy, we appreciate that. I really do. It touched me when you said you can't worry about the cards that you were dealt, but right. It's how you play them. Yeah. But I asked this question: if you're playing Uno and you don't got no draw foes on the reverse, what happens then? What do I do? What I do? I started out with 7. Right. Everybody made me draw 4. I'm a little, you know, but I'm gonna still play. I'm gonna still do whatever it takes in order for me to win. And I appreciate it. It touched me. So now when I play Uno against Marvin, I promise you, I might cheat. I don't know what I will do, but I know that my goal is to win. So anybody who's listening out there, make sure, I don't care what cards you were dealt. You ain't no spades in your hand. You ain't got no face cards. It's okay. Throw the cards up in there and reshuffle. That's all I got.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Again, we are your hosts, Marvin Frank and McLovin. We are the hosts, 2 of the hosts of Dear Millennials, the lit. I don't know if we could curse.
The lit ass podcast.
Okay.
I got it. I'm sorry.
See, you know, the babies might be listening, man. But anyway, if you're looking for comedy, candor, criticism, talking about anything with social issues, politics, media, entertainment, check us out. Just search Dear Millennials. Dr. Daryl Hilton, thank you so much for the opportunity for inviting us to be a part of such a great production with our esteemed panelists. Wherever you are, ladies and gentlemen, clap it up. Show some positive reinforcement for Mr. Jared Washington, Mr. Timothy Bowers, Mr. Ian Saunders, Mr. Dominique Moody, Mr. Andrew Alexander, and Mr. Julius Collins. Excuse me, I was trying not to cough there. But again, Operation G.R.A.D Incorporated is a 501c nonprofit organization. The mission here is to increase the persistence and graduation rates of collegiate Black males through mentoring. All right. This week, Founders Day, happy Founders Day, Operation G.R.A.D Incorporated. Make sure you tune in to the other events happening this week. Wednesday, which is tomorrow night, February 3rd, virtual DJ Battle Scholarship fundraiser. Come through, shake a tail feather. All right, 7. You didn't like that song?
I know. Keep going.
All right. 7 p.m. via Facebook Live on Friday, February 5th, that we celebrated their Founders Day. $25 hours of giving. Donate $25 if you have it to give to 5 on 25 and have a live conversation and chat with the co-founders. 6 p.m. via Facebook Live. If you know of any corporate and university partners, we are looking. Operation G.R.A.D is looking. So if you know anyone that are stakeholders and corporations or universities that would be a good fit for this organization, please contact the co-founders, Dr. Daryl Hilton and Jamie Ng. Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for the State of the Educated Black Men, presented by Operation G.R.A.D Incorporated.